What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay, so now we are looking at Deuteronomy chapter 6, and I realize it's saying these right off the bat. That might be referring to what's about to be said or to what was said in the previous chapter, so maybe keep that in mind as we continue on. But, yeah, further, I guess, discussion. Now I think this is more so Moses expanding upon or, adding his own thoughts and encouragement to the commands previously stated. Especially the ones in chapter 5. But anyway. Okay, so here we go. Deuteronomy chapter 6. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy. And you and your children and grandchildren must fear the Lord your God as long as you live. If you obey all his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. So, honestly, that felt like just a bunch of different ways of saying, all right, obey these commands, and things will go well. That's really all that was saying there. So, also encouraging them to pass it along to their descendants so that things will go well with them. Okay, verse 4. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you are on the road, when you are going to bed and when you are getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your foreheads as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So, quick kind of tangent. The whole love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. That was not first said by Jesus in the New Testament. I know that's where we tend to quote it from more often, but he was quoting this verse here. Deuteronomy 6:5. So, yeah, just saying. I mean, granted, in that context, the teachers or leaders or whoever were asking Jesus what he thought the greatest commandment was, and he pointed to this. Because essentially, loving God with all your heart, soul, and strength means, following these commandments as best as you can. And not only that, not only seeking to obey the laws, but seeking God, seeking to spend time with God, seeking God's wisdom, all that kind of stuff. Because as much as some people might make it seem like the commands are the most important part, they're not. God himself is more important than his commands. The Pharisees in New Testament times had issues with, doing that. And there are, I would say, modern day Pharisees who kind of have issues with that, where they tend to focus more on the commands rather than actually seeking God. But I digress. Tangent over. Footnote there. Or, the Lord our God is one Lord. Or, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Or, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Rather than, I guess, saying the Lord alone. I almost kind of halfway, before I read that footnote, expected it to be like, saying something about the Lord, and its actual Hebrew word being Yahweh, that kind of stuff. But, no. So, I mean, yeah, that has a slightly different meaning to it, saying, that God is one, but that also, by saying that God is one, or that he is one Lord, or that the Lord is one, or anything like that, it's also saying that, he's the one and only God. No other proclaimed deities are the Lord. So kind of an implication or reminder once again not to follow other gods. And then in terms of all the repetition and writing things down in various places, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have done that stuff literally. But again, the point was more so just to, be so, driven in your, learning and repetition of these things that, do everything you can to make sure you don't forget them. Remind yourself of them as often as you can, in as many ways as you need to. And I mean, yeah, we might not so much literally, write these things on our foreheads nowadays, but, who might wear a hat that has John 3:16 on it, or some other kind of thing to that effect. You might wear other clothes that would have, references to God's commands on them. It's also somewhat common to, have a little placard or some sort of, words on a wall in your house that might, reflect those commands, or, something to that effect. Again, the point was, have it around you everywhere. Don't forget it. Remind yourself often. So anyway, verse 10. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give you when he made a vow to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget the Lord who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must use only his name. And that last bit, I think, was another way of just saying, okay, remember to follow God, not other idols, deities, whatever. And I think, in general, this section is kind of a reminder that, okay, yeah, when you go into this land that God's about to give you, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't really work for. Life is going to be easy in a lot of ways. But don't let that, make you forget about God's blessings. That God is the one who is ultimately giving you these things. So, verse 14. You must not worship any of the gods of neighboring nations, for the Lord your God, who lives among you, is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test the Lord your God, as you did when you complained at Massah. You must diligently obey the commands of the Lord your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as the Lord said you would. Okay, so I get a feeling there are a couple of different uses of the English word you in here. Because in this section where it's saying his anger will flare up against you and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. Like, God promised that he would never completely wipe his people off the face of the earth. So clearly this is not the collective you anymore. I think this is more so the, like, actual specific, like, you individually. If you start worshiping other gods, you, O hearer of this, specifically, God will be angry with you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. And I think same use of it for the next verse, and for verse 17. And then I think maybe we get back to the collective you with, like, this phrase here. But anyway, all that to once again say, don't worship other gods, follow the Lord, and things will go well. You start worshiping these other gods, not going to go so well. Guy's going to be mad at you, and yeah, you're going to have some big problems. Okay. Then I guess we're on to verse 20, and I'll probably just read through to the end of the chapter, give my final thoughts afterwards. Verse 20. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that the Lord our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. The Lord did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he had sworn to give our ancestors. And the Lord our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him so he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives, as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands the Lord our God has given us. I wonder how literal, considering people these days convert religions or don't worship and still... Yeah, yeah, that's something, I mean... First off, he was talking, specifically to his people in this case, not just anybody. God wasn't necessarily going to literally wipe everybody else off the face of the earth. Like, although, if, Revelation and other prophecies that have yet to occur are to be believed, that will kind of eventually happen. So, even if not right away, that's eventually going to be literal. And there's no real time frame mentioned in there. So, I mean, on a technicality, you could technically still say that this isn't wrong. Even if it, hasn't happened yet. because there's going to be, like, a whole bunch of final judgment stuff, and could be a threat, hoping they believe it enough not to test. Yeah, and that was also kind of one of the points being made here. Like, don't get testy with God. Don't dabble in other religions just, to try them out, or just because you're, feeling like you don't need God anymore, or that, belief in God isn't, exciting at the moment or anything like that. These final verses here are really, again, just encouragement to remind future generations that, these laws are to be obeyed. These are coming from the Lord our God, who delivered us from Egypt and did all these amazing things that cause us to, appreciate, even love the Lord our God, but also fear him, because these were some miraculous, yes, signs, but also terrifying signs of power. Also, verse 25 there, once again, we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands the Lord our... Which, that might be a big reason why some people get so caught up on the rules and following the rules. Now, of course, modern day, the game has changed, so to speak. We have a different relationship with God because Jesus. But at least as things were for the Israelites at this time, God wanted obedience and righteousness from them, which really could only be demonstrated by, love and dedication to God and to following his commands. But anyway, I guess that about wraps it up for chapter 6. Okay, so TLDW, Moses is once again encouraging the people to follow God's commands, also to teach them to their children and grandchildren, making sure that they're constantly, or at least consistently, very often, reading these words, thinking on them, all that kind of stuff, so that, things will go well in future generations. And, also, obviously, not to start obeying any other gods just because things get easy for them or anything like that. But that kind of is the general summary of Deuteronomy 6. So anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.